Okay, a little intro. You might have noticed on there and on flags on the way into the office and so on that we have this thing called the D365 people. So there has been for some time coming a thing called Dynamics 365. Has everybody heard of Dynamics 365? Some people not. Okay. So Dynamics 365 is a Microsoft running version of NAV or AX. I'll explain that bit in a moment. But basically, if you take NAV and you put it in a Microsoft server and you use that as opposed to putting it into your own server or somebody else's Azure cloud, that is what Microsoft refer to as Dynamics 365. Okay, it is the same product, it's just where it is that makes the difference. So, at some point in the past, we thought it was going to be a different product, as in take NAV and make it different. That isn't the case. That was changed a few months ago. And basically, Dynamics 365 at a product level is NAV. We have exactly the version of the database and the objects in our grasp here, which is exactly the same thing you get if you signed up to Dynamics 365. Okay? So there's no product difference at all. That's the first most important thing to think about. So when people say, should we use Dynamics 365 or should we use NAV? It is the same product. It's just whether it's in the Microsoft hosted cloud, and there's some pricing information around it, which my friend Mr. Dredge will explain later. Mr. Dredge, would you like to talk about digital world?
You talk about it, right?
Yeah, you talk about it. Your slide.
He's really begrudging me. So I want to talk about this. So, Microsoft talk about the digital transformation across businesses, and to be honest, I look at most of their marketing stuff and I have no idea what that means because they're very fluffy and they don't tend to distill it into something tangible. So we started working on kind of what that actually means when you look at how Microsoft are now positioning ERP in conjunction with Office 365, working on top of Azure with all their social listening platforms, and how that would affect, in effect, us, you guys, your business, and your customers and your suppliers. And we put this together because it's just quite interesting seeing where digital now touches our lives from a business perspective. So obviously we start with the colouring in department, marketing, but there's quite a lot now that Microsoft are using. Social media, people are starting to gather information on social media about people talking about their companies, about their products. They're using CRM now to track how advertising campaigns and how successful those things are. So that, what used to be quite a detached part of the digital world has now become very integrated. Using email marketing to gather information to see people responding and clicking through on campaigns and promotions is now becoming a much more integrated part of our world. When we look at how people are trying to interact with suppliers, it's everything from workflows, going from your business out to suppliers to get confirmation, to make them aware of things, to fully integrated EDI transactions, suppliers wanting portals to log on to potentially your system. We're seeing more people wanting to do vendor managed inventory where they're looking into your business and seeing what of our products does this company need to save you having to worry about it. So that sort of whole kind of interaction from the start of the supply chain is becoming more integrated. When you look at prospects kind of rolling into customers, I mean, the touch points now are, it's people on websites, it's people on your manufacturer's websites, it's meeting guys at trade shows. And if they're meeting people at trade shows, they've probably got mobile these days so that they can access data about stock and products. You're starting to see with social media people doing reviews, linking reviews back into your ERP system to sales and campaigns and promotions. All of that is starting to get wrapped up. Where we used to just have these sort of kind of disparate systems that weren't joined up, all of these things now, you'll see there's a slide in a little bit that kind of shows how Microsoft is trying to bring all of that into a single environment. So where we could manage these things in pockets, actually now they're becoming more and more integrated and dependent on each other and driving certain behavior and certain things will happen based on other events up and down the supply chain. Ian mentioned this earlier as well. It's quite interesting that obviously staff these days, especially the younger people, expect everything to be digital. It's, you know, I want to put my expenses on my timesheet. I want to look up product stuff. Again, if I'm a sales guy on the road potentially, I want to log onto a portal to manage my holiday and update my HR system. Even down to the things they do in their business. You know, why do I have to key on paper? You know, I'm an accountant originally many years ago, and you know, big stack of invoices, rekeying them. People don't expect that now. The new generation expect all of this to happen in a digital way, not in a manual way. So part of the attraction for people working in certain businesses, and I don't know if you ever read many of these sort of glass door surveys, you know, things are important, obviously money, but actually the kind of ease of working in the environment, the availability to technology is becoming quite a key attraction for staff. And we kind of cycled back around then into what was, you know, sort of traditional CRM is sort of integrating back into the beginning of that awareness cycle with the social media, with the campaigning, with the integration to customer details within the ERP system. So when Microsoft talk about this digital transformation, that for us is kind of trying to, at some point, say, well, this is what it could mean. It's all of these things. Now, for some of you, it'll be some of those things. For some of you others, it'll be more or less. But if you think about all these places we now touch digitally, and Microsoft is bringing this all together, the whole integrated strategy actually becomes quite an important thing. I forget what generation. So get your hands off the keyboard. Very naughty boy. So this was just quite interesting. There's a recent study that said 47% of companies haven't even started to embark on this idea of a digital transformation. So they might have old systems sat in isolated pockets, but they haven't got any strategy, thought process, or direction set out in terms of how they're going to start to embrace this big digital world that exists out there. Of those 47%, 55% want to do it in the next year, which is quite interesting because you haven't started yet, but you want to have it done in a year.
And in a year's time, they'll still want to do it in the next.
Well, there is definitely that. What is interesting is the next slide that goes up. So, but 85% of people say if in 2 years they haven't started on this digital transformation journey, they're going to get left behind by their competitors. So it's kind of a little bit of the sort of fear of God thing, where it's like, okay, you're not thinking about it, you haven't started it, but if you don't do it in 2 years, you are going to get left behind. And you know, we're seeing a lot of the Microsoft stuff that's coming out, all of the things they're promoting, and you think, I'm starting to feel like the old dog these days that doesn't want to learn new tricks. It's going at such a pace. So leaving it for a year to worry about it actually is going to make this bit much harder to catch up. You know, you're going to get left behind quite quickly. I have one more slide and then I hand back to you. So the one interesting thing, just going back to that sort of everybody wants digital, millennials, there might be one or two in the room, just.
Sure.
No, I'm sure. So millennials, 69% of millennials are fully digital enabled. It's not surprised because I have a 14-year-old daughter and they all wander around like this all the time and even sit next to each other doing this and laughing because they just text each other a joke, even though they could talk to each other, but they don't do that. It's, you know, they're digitally enabled. So you think by 2025, 70% of the workforce will be millennials. So you think, okay, well, that's a future problem. That's, you know, 7, 8, 9 years away. But for most of us, in fact, almost all of us, Generation X, we're really not that far behind in terms of our digital engagement. So we kind of sometimes worry too much about these guys being the digital generation. Actually, we're almost as good or bad, depending on your perspective. So, and combined, that is today's workforce, pretty much. So that's why the digital thing and why Microsoft and all the other sort of IT companies are putting so much stock behind this idea that you need to evolve into the next generation of the digital world. And it's not just isolated pockets of applications anymore, it's a fully joined up strategy, I think. Back to you. And this is how Microsoft see it as a joined up thing. They don't see this. We're not really allowed to talk about this anymore as just one thing. This is only part of this entire digital strategy and roadmap that they have laid out.
And the interesting thing so Microsoft have just had, literally in the last month, a huge reorganization. That every now and again, I think in our Microsoft took over NAV in 2003.
Yeah.
And in that time, I only remember one other such major reorganization. So this is Microsoft-wide. They have reorganized the whole business, basically around vertical markets, not products. What they're basically saying is people shouldn't care whether they're using NAV or AX or Microsoft CRM or Power BI or blah, blah, blah. Like, that should be irrelevant to them. They use Microsoft software, and when they log on, there's some screens and there's some stuff. And the way that you use that stuff from a user perspective should be irrelevant. You shouldn't have to think, when I click that, I'm using NAV, but when I click this, I'm using Power BI, right? Which that's their basic philosophy. Now, of course, underpinning all that, you have to have products. You have to have the software that does it. But the view is, going forward, it shouldn't matter. It should be you log on to, so for example, if you come to our user day last year, in 2017 now, you can go into your Outlook, an email arrives. When you click on the email, on the right-hand side, it shows you all the details of that customer who just sent you the email, how much money they owe, this is their purchase order, their sales orders, or whatever information you want to see relevant to the customer who's just emailed you, and you're still in Outlook. Now, it happens to be that the provider of that information is NAV, but it should be irrelevant to the user. They're just in Outlook. I've got an email there, I've got some information there. And if when you then click on that customer, there's a little graph in the bottom of it, who cares whether that's Power BI? It should be irrelevant to the user. Okay, so that's and they've changed their whole organization in the last couple of months. They've changed the whole organization going forward to be focused on that idea. You will use Microsoft software, don't you worry about which bit it is. We'll worry about the interconnectivity between all those bits, you just worry about using it. So this all started from Office 365. Who uses Office 365 here? See, it's quite interesting, and that's a relatively new product. Not that many years ago, nobody would have had Office 365. Now, by far and away, the majority of any room that we ever ask that question uses Office 365. It's a brilliant way of accessing your information, and it's one less server thing you have to worry about. And really, this is all part of that same story. That if you're in Office 365 and you're in an email and it shows you on the right-hand side some information which is actually in SharePoint, you don't need to know that it's SharePoint. It's just part of Office 365. And if in that SharePoint screen it happens to show you a graph that happens to be Power BI, who cares? It's just part of your experience. So as part of the overall thing, because we're IT people, of course, we all know underneath this you have to have products. So the components are Office 365, Power BI, Cortana Intelligence, which is artificial intelligence, the Azure Internet of Things. We haven't really seen that come much into our field of vision yet, but we expect that. This is certainly the beacons on products, for lock tracking, RFID chips, all that sort of stuff that's going to come in. And I think, although that stuff's been around for a long time, I think that is because the cost profile of that stuff is coming down so cheap now, it is going to start happening in the next few years. So then there's this differentiation between Dynamics 365 Business Edition and Enterprise Edition. I'll go through that in just a moment. And because of all of this ecosystem, there will be a load of people writing apps for it. And Microsoft, as you know, done a pretty dismal job in the past of making people download little apps onto their Microsoft phones in the same way that Android and an iPhone did. But this is a different world. This is stuff where you're downloading apps for your business. And let's be fair, that's always been Microsoft's sweet spot. Business software, not little consumer devices. That's, they've not proved themselves good at that. But in the business software world, they've always done a great job. So the idea here is once you've got this ecosystem, people start writing apps that go into a business app store so that you can download your expenses app or your workflow app or whatever it is. And it's business software to plug into your business environment. And also that means people joining together things like marketing tools so that you happen to be using NAV and you've got a list of customers and you want to send them all an email. Well, instead of you worrying about writing integration to MailChimp, somebody will have written a MailChimp to NAV integration such that when you click a button, download that app, you'll be able to then start using MailChimp integrated to your NAV system or Dynamics 365 system. So all of this sits on an application platform which has a bunch of technologies. Power Apps, Power BI, which is the reporting stuff, and a thing called Flow. Have anybody seen Flow? Flow is a configuration tool where you can say, for example, if somebody sends me an email, move that email. If somebody sends me an email and it's from this type of customer, move that email automatically into this type of folder, and then trigger a workflow in NAV to do something. So it's a sort of a way that you can configure flows of information. It's fairly in its infancy at the moment, but it's getting cleverer and cleverer. Power Apps are things that you can write, the very easy apps that people can write for mobile phones to connect data to anything in this stack. So you can very easily write a customer list, a vendor list, or whatever. Doesn't matter where the software is coming from. It doesn't matter whether it's coming from Microsoft CRM or NAV or AX or anything else. You write a Power App and it works across all those platforms. And all of this sits on Azure. And you can really see that Azure that's Microsoft Cloud. We host all of our systems internally. We host all of our internal systems in Azure. We host the customers that we run where we run their systems. We host them in Azure. If you've done a project with us, we host the projects in Azure. You can think of Azure as being akin to Windows. In the past, Microsoft wanted you to run Windows, and they wanted you to use Microsoft software because it runs on Windows, because that's what keeps you in the Microsoft world. And that really now is Azure. All of this stuff runs on Azure. They want everything to run on Azure because that means whilst you're on Azure, you're in the Microsoft world as opposed to the Oracle world. And there aren't really many of those worlds today. You've already got Amazon, Oracle, and Microsoft, really. And Amazon and Oracle, certainly Amazon are nowhere with ERP apps. So that's the new world of, let's say, 365 rather than Dynamics 365. If you look at Dynamics 365, what is it? It's basically a NAV. So I'm going to say here, Dynamics 365, there are two versions. There are Dynamics 365 for enterprise and for business. For enterprise is AX, as used to be. Okay, different product, usually aimed at higher end corporates. We don't sell it, so I'm not going to spend much time talking about it. Dynamics 365 for business is NAV. Okay, so you get finance and operations for business, which is NAV. It's connected with Microsoft Dynamics CRM, a brand new version coming out very shortly. And it's connected with Power BI, Power Apps, Flow, and all that stuff in the previous stack. So all of that thing in the box is a thing. When it's on the Microsoft 365 server, so they're hosting it in their particular part of the Microsoft Cloud, that is really what you call Microsoft Dynamics 365. Okay? It's the same software, it's just running somewhere else in their Microsoft Cloud. If you run that same thing on your own server, you still have all the same stuff. It's running on your own server. And that today is still called NAV plus all those other bits. And equally, and this is the one that gets slightly confusing, you can run all of that exact same stuff but using Azure, either yours or ours. So Azure is the Microsoft Cloud. We already have all of our stuff in that Microsoft Cloud. Dynamics 365 is itself just in Azure. Okay, so the only difference between going there and there is that way, if you get a problem, you have to phone Microsoft. This way, if you get a problem, you phone somebody like us. Okay. Now, in reality, even if it's the Microsoft Cloud, you'll phone us first, but we only have a certain amount of control over that environment because it's a controlled Microsoft environment in the cloud. This is under our control. But the important thing is it's the same software, facilities, functionality, reporting, capabilities, and everything else. So when we talk about Dynamics 365, we're talking really about the fact that it's in the Microsoft controlled environment.
Excuse me. Laura, last question.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Can you just dig a little bit deeper into the difference between that your version of Azure Is that something physically hosted by you, or is that
No,
a slice of the...
no. Azure is just a big, is Microsoft's cloud, that's called Azure,
Yeah.
of which any of us, you included, can go and say, I'd like some servers in the Azure cloud, please. I'd like 4 Windows servers. Press some buttons, you put your credit card in, and you get some capability. Okay, it's physically in data centers wherever they are, but they're segregated for you, if you like, right?
But they're then maintained by Microsoft.
The servers and everything else. So they aren't just servers. So if you wanted to install some software, you still install the software on it, right? They're servers in a virtual world, but so Microsoft are physically looking after them. They're in some big data center, but they're still under your control. You can access it, delete it, install software, remove software, and everything else. Okay. So what you're doing in that case is you are buying into the capability of cloud servers, but under your control. Okay. We have ourselves got that environment. We logged on. We've got a whole NAV on demand environment, we call it. They're just servers, and the Dynamics 365 is the same. Somebody at Microsoft who's in the Dynamics team logged on and said, I need a bunch of servers to run this thing called Dynamics 365. Okay? So it is exactly the same servers in exactly the same place doing exactly the same job. Because their one is under their control, we couldn't, for example, delete a database, right? Because they will control that. Whereas on here, we could. We can't access directly the back-end system, whereas we can here. Yeah? And obviously, in your case, you can if it's there or there. So it comes down really to what you're allowed to do in that environment. Because that environment there is intended for lots and lots of people all over the world for using it, you can imagine the controls around it are quite considerable. There's lots of things you can't do that you obviously could do whatever you like to do in your environment, and you can do pretty much what you like if it's in our environment. So it really comes down to a level of control.
Just to take one step deeper there. So in terms of things like patch management or security updates or all those things, would that be in the left-hand column there, would that be something you would manage?
Yes. As far as you're concerned, end customer, that scenario very little different.
They're simply hosting that and making sure the machines are...
Exactly, exactly. If you had your own bit of Azure, you'd have to patch them, but if you have our bit of Azure, that's what we do. Yeah.
Thank you.
So when we say what is Dynamics 365 therefore, first of all, at a product level, it is just NAV, literally exactly the same. Okay? It's a database with functionality, and it is exactly the same. It's not slightly different, it is exactly the same. But it's a hosting option. It means you or we are not hosting that. Microsoft are hosting it. That's the difference. It is also a pricing option. If you do that in the Dynamics 365 environment, you have to pay per user per month for all users. It's not a concurrent license model, and it's not a I want to buy the license model. Now, that makes a lot of difference for people like you, because you already own a license. If you were looking to buy it brand new from scratch, you might consider, do I want to pay per user per month, or do I want to have a concurrent license model and pay for it up front? You've already bought your licenses. So is Dynamics 365 as a hosting option an option for you? It's obviously got a cost implication because you've in effect got to buy your license again. Microsoft are not at the moment doing any value back for your license. Okay, but it's important to understand the Dynamics 365 is a different pricing. It's a very, very, very evolving thing. At the moment, the only thing you can sign up for is what's called Dynamics 365 for Financials, which is literally a cut down. It's all the products there, but they're only exposing certain functionality, which is really accounts payable, accounts receivable, general ledger, little bit of stock. Okay. We've signed up only. I think the US one is the only one that's signed up for at the moment, isn't it? Yeah. So at the moment you can only sign up in the US one. It's not available in the UK yet.
Okay, sorry, Financials is.
Is it?
Yes,
it was interesting. Paul signed up yesterday, and he ended up getting a US.
So that's if you sign up for the trial.
Okay. So the trial is only a US one.
Yeah.
its main thing at the moment is the ability to modify the system is considerably limited. You can only make mods in that environment that you can do as an extension, this thing that you write to one side. And that just gives you restrictions. Some mods are just not possible to develop that way. Difficulty is whenever somebody says that, I usually say, give me an example of what you can do. It's quite hard. I can usually, if you said to me, could you do this? I might be able to say yes or no to it. But so the ability to mod it is much, and you're certainly not logging onto it and making mods there and then, because you can imagine this environment is being used by, well, at the moment, very few people, but in the future, the intention is it will be used by lots of people. So we have to make the modifications separately, and then we have to apply them into this environment. So it's a different world, really. It's not, if you're coming from a nav world where you're used to making changes and getting them done and delivered and so on, that's not really the environment it is. However, what we have is this thing called My Dynamics 365, because Dynamics 365 is just nav. We can put Dynamics 365, the same software, in our Azure cloud, so it's still running on Azure, it's still the same software. The only difference is it is personalizable for you. Okay, so that's where we're hosting the same thing, but you can have your own version of it. So does that make some sense? You can think it really is to do with, it's hosted by somebody else, controlled by somebody else. And it's much more, they're gearing it much more to lots of users using the same functionality, not customers who need to have mods specific to them. They're going to improve that, but that's not where they're aiming it at the moment. You will hear some phrases. So this is my translation side. Today, there's a thing called Dynamics 365 for Financials, which is basically nav, but only certain elements shown on the screen. It's all there underneath it, but actually they're only exposing on the menu a very financial-oriented version. No warehouse management, no manufacturing, no CRM.
So just to say they just announced they've got financials plus as a name.
Brilliant. So this is literally every week at the moment, something else to change. So we haven't got the Dynamics 365 for financials. They're now called that for business, I guess.
So the new official name is Dynamics 365 Financials and Operations Business Edition.
How beautiful is that?
Dynamics 365 Financials and Operations Enterprise Edition.
Okay, good. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Beautiful, much better, much more catchy. So if you see Dynamics 365 Financials and Operations for business, that's nav. Okay? And if you see it for enterprise, that's AX. Okay? There's Dynamics 365 Sales and Marketing, which is what is currently being called Microsoft CRM. Okay? But there's a slightly different version of that. It's not released yet, I think, but it's shortly now.
How much do you want me to confuse that?
Not at all. Okay. Then you've got Dynamics 365 for business is when you add nav and CRM and the other bits and pieces together, Power BI and all those other bits. Dynamics 365, so this is now called Dynamics 365 Enterprise. Sorry, I should have changed it.
Financials and Operations for Enterprise.
Which is AX. Enterprise is when you add CRM to it. Okay, so forget those maths too, because we're not doing those anyway. So you're going to see more and more of these slightly confusing things. I think they'll end up just saying Dynamics 365 for business, Dynamics 365 for enterprise. And they'll lose the underlying bits because they don't want you to care about.
I went to the Future Decoded.
Yes.
Was it decoded?
Well, as I didn't know what the code was to start with. And that was obviously only AX, because nav hadn't been sort of progressed at that point. And they pretty much focused entirely on CRM.
Yes.
It was presented as a CRM tool with this thing called AX that would run your operation. I came away with the impression that was where Microsoft's energies would be going.
Well, I think it's partly to do with the fact that as of today, the user base on Microsoft CRM is vastly more than the user base of NAV and AX, right? So it's got much more visibility. Lots of people use that corporately, lots of people, yeah? So it's a good place for them to start with this story. We tend to start with this story from a NAV point of view and say, by the way, it also has CRM. If you're more from a CRM focus, you could say it's got CRM and it's also got this thing called NAV. Yeah. So it depends where you come from, I think is the honest answer. But I don't disagree. They're often starting from that starting point of lots of people have got CRM. They should also have an ERP connected to it. That's quite true.
It was, as I say, presented as the CRM was CRM was essential, but you could have AX as well.
Yeah. I think the problem is you could go to another event with a different Microsoft guy and get a different story. I think that's part of the problem. I don't disagree. I've seen exactly the same.
And it is part of the problem that they're trying to go with partners, because as Ian said, the problem you have today is we'll talk about ERP because we're ERP people, and CRM guys will talk about CRM. What Microsoft actually want to talk about is Dynamics 365.
Yeah. In fact, they'd rather just talk about Microsoft 365, like not even Dynamics 365.
Yeah.
Be very generic. You should use a Microsoft stuff. Yeah.
What is interesting is how the branding is filtering out. So somebody emailed me yesterday saying, I've got a 2009 NAV 365 system.
Yeah.
Customers are now creating their own version.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of confusion around this. So this is Dynamics 365, which other than that logo at the top there, it is NAV. The only difference when you literally there is a sort of setting somewhere that says if I'm running over here, show that word as Dynamics 365, otherwise show it as NAV. Like this is as simple as that, So this is the same thing you get if it's like NAV. But when you log into the 365 thing, you get the offer of a trial. You get exactly this same front end. So this is pretty much what 2018 is going to look like. This is from now till October. They'll do a few more bits and pieces, but pretty much what now 2018 is going to look like. A lot of this stuff like that is interesting because we showed that at last year's user day. Even on 2017, you can have that style of view of NAV rather than a straightforward list. Okay, so you can have tiled view, small tiled view, medium tiled view. That's 2017. You can do that today. Okay, so what's it probably looks different than you've seen today? Actually, that's not different because of 2018 or Dynamics 365. That is what NAV looks like today. But the sort of place that they're moving toward is if you create a new item, you go straight into what sort of item is it? It's an office furniture item. What is your item? It's the Copenhagen chair. And then so if I did no more than that, and then I said, I've got a picture of this, by the way, I'm going to import that picture. Where have you got the picture? It's this thing here, that Copenhagen chair. Now, this is an example of connecting NAV to other services. Okay, so Dynamics 365, in this case, is actually connected to a bunch of artificial intelligence tools. So what it's done there, it's uploaded that picture, and it's worked out from that picture that this is a chair, and it's black. So it should go in the category chair, right? So, and it did that based on the picture. If it were a table, it goes, well, it's a table. It's a glass table. Come to the user day. By the time we're on the user day, we'll be attaching a picture of Gary Asprey saying, that is a 21-year-old.
Fair.
So this is so what they're doing here is in Azure, there are a whole bunch of artificial intelligence tools, and one of them is recognize this picture, right? It's stunning. One of the guys in the office took a picture of me in the corner in there. Sorry, took a selfie of himself. Selfie of himself, and behind on the wall, I don't know if you've seen, there's a picture of me dressed as Willy Wonka. Right? It's a scary photo. So he's got in this picture himself with me on a big picture in the background. It comes back, this thing comes back and says, there's two people in the photo. The one on the left is 34 years old, and AZ is 35 years old. So we'll give it, we'll give it that. It even says there's two people in the picture. Bear in mind, I'm dressed as a very strange type guy with some superimposed hat on my head. It says there's two people in the photo. The other I won't tell you what age you thought I was. But it says two people stood in front of a window, which it actually is. There's a window next to it is a window. Now, can you imagine the technology behind that? It's immense. So what they're doing here is saying, right, we've got this technology that recognises things. what makes sense in an ERP? Well, it makes sense. If I attach a picture of it, go, well, that's a blue chair. Now, one of the nice things here is, because it says, well, that's in the category chair, and by the way, it's got a seat and it's furniture. And if I want to, I can click this button here and build the description. So I've put seat in it, and I'll also say it's got something to do with floor. Yeah? So it's recognised stuff because it's seen it's a chair on the floor. Yeah? So you can build your description just from the picture. Now that's just an example of where the thing is moving with this interconnected stuff. In the past, of course, we could have gone as, now, oh, I know this clever thing that we could use. Microsoft are building in more, as they're building all these things around the infrastructure, they're then saying, well, how can we now use that cleverness that we've got over there in Azure Cortana Intelligence and use it in our ERP product and use it in our CRM products and so on. Quite cute, isn't it? And that is sort of the start. Equally, this forecast down here, again, if you came to see us last year at the user day, we talked a little about this. This forecast is coming by throwing it into an artificial intelligence forecasting solution and coming back and suggesting how that product is likely to sell over the next whatever months based on AI forecast information. Okay, so that is what we're talking about when we talk about both Dynamics 365 and the future of NAV. As in just running through it, you've got similar things on vendors. What they've done a lot of is to simplify the screens. Addressing contact is all in one tab now. The most obvious stuff, there's less tabs, so they're hiding a lot of the tabs that not many people use. It's much cleaner as an interface. It's exactly the same screens as and information behind it as you have today, but instead of having lots of fields that people rarely use on the front tabs, they've tidied it up very nicely. Spend the ledger, usual sort of stuff. When you pay the supplier, you go from payment run, build a payment journal, build a payment journal, populate a payment journal. So if you use NAV, you can see it's all very familiar. It's a new interface, but it's all very familiar to the way you use it today. Of course, bear in mind, this is all running in the web client. And that's one of the big differences you would definitely see. They are putting lots and lots of effort into the web client. Lots and lots of it.
I've got to set up with the sliding line.
Yeah, it just says there's more stuff in the future. So, there's one thing I was going to say about that. What did I say about that slide about?
Well, it's just
just go back. I was going to clarify. Yeah, web client. So, I'm guessing anybody used the web client here? No. So, the web client's been available since 2013 R2. So, you've probably got it installed, have you? But no. Oh, you're on 2013. So, 2013 R2, you get a web client, and subsequent versions had nicer web clients. So if you upgraded to 2018 technical upgrade or 2017 technical upgrade, you'd get a web client, a tablet client, and a phone client. That on its own is worth doing. Those clients will unquestionably be, going forward, the clients that people will use most. It's certainly the clients that Microsoft are spending all their time on. In the Dynamics 365 world, it's the only way that you access NAV through a web client. The web client has got better and better and better, and it's very shortly going to become the default option, I think. So today we normally say everybody starts with the Windows client and then says, oh, maybe we'll have a look at the web client. But going forward, I think more people will start with the web client. It means you've got less infrastructure, you've got I think a nicer environment. If anything, the client is nicer than the Windows one. So worth considering as part of an upgrade as to whether you might get rid of terminal servers and Citrix servers and so on and move to a web client. Mr. Dredge, would you like to take the numbers?
Okay. I put the real numbers back in because I thought it was just more amusing. So Dynamics 365, the shared platform that Microsoft hosts, I don't know how they work out their pricing, right? £30.20. It's like that's being really accurate. But it's useful to put context around so this is basically ERP, sales, marketing, and hosting in Azure, and it's going to be £30 per user per month, which is quite an incredible value for money, really, when you look at it. A limited user, for those of you who don't know, is in effect like a read-only user. They're calling it, they've renamed it as a team viewer or something weird. So it was just to help put some context. Currently, if you're on a subscription, so with My Dynamics 365, or if you decide to put NAV on your own cloud or your own on-prem, and you want to do it on subscription, it's about £80 per user per month, just for NAV. So it kind of puts the context around. If you had a 10-user system and you were hosting it in Azure, you'd be paying about £140 per user per month for a full user just for NAV. And in the new world for Microsoft, you're paying, well, 30% of that, and you get CRM, and you get Azure hosting. So it's quite interesting to see where the commercial brain is going with this longer term. It's kind of really all there is to say.
I think the difficult and the most important thing to understand is that's great if you could use it. Yeah. So I think that's my message to people is usually if you're looking at this is if you can use Dynamics 365 in Microsoft Cloud because you don't need many modifications and you're happy with the restrictions and so on, it is really good value for money. But there's no point in comparing that number with a different number if you can't use it, because lots of stuff that we can't have is cheap. So I think that's the context I would put that. Questions?
I'm not quite understanding this slide.
So, Dynamics 365, which is Microsoft's currently restricted NAV version of the cloud, a full user costs you £30 per user per month, and that includes NAV, CRM, and Azure hosting, all bundled in for that one price. If you wanted to put NAV into your own private cloud, or you wanted it on premise as a subscription, it would in effect cost you £80 per user per month. That's their current subscription pricing. And you'd obviously have to pay if you're going to put it in Azure, the Azure pricing. That's some examples. I think the big point here is, as Ian was saying, you've all bought licenses already. So if you're putting NAV into an Azure cloud as part of your upgrade, or putting it into My Dynamics 365 as part of an upgrade, you don't have, in effect, that user cost because you've already bought the software. Then you're just into a hosting cost for that.
Yeah, that bottom bit is more relevant. That's just hosting your new version of NAV in our cloud.
All makes sense? Yeah. Blimey.
Good.
Take you 6 months to just try and work that bit out.
So what would we host it with you cost?
So these are the typical examples. I can't remember how many users you have in your system.
We have about 100.
Okay, so about 100 users. It's always quite difficult because we base it on 500,000 transactions per month because that's what we tend to get with higher volumes of users. It's about that price for a fully managed Azure platform.
And again, that's always you have to bear that in mind. That's a fully managed thing. We're looking after the whole of the IT for you. So,
but we have a team of people that sit down with you and work out exactly what you need. So you can imagine you could be 100 users and you do half that number of transactions, or you could be 100 users and be a big e-commerce company and do 20 times that number of transactions.
The question we're likely to get is, when I go back to the office, is how do I explain that difference between £80 per user per month?
So I think that the fact you have now today, yeah. I almost wouldn't worry about it today, because I doubt...
You've already bought your license.
Yeah.
Yes. Now so you can forget the middle one because you wouldn't do that. You've already paid for that stuff. The option you could have is to not have your own NAV system, but to use the Dynamics 365 in the Microsoft Cloud environment. Okay. In which case you'd have to pay £30.20 per user per month. Bear in mind, per user, not concurrent. So all named users. Right. Okay. Just make that clear. Now, which is great. That is cheap. It is cheap if you can use it. So if you can use it, definitely you should consider it. If you can't use it, it doesn't matter how cheap it is. Yeah, I think that's the point. So yes, you're right, that's cheap because it's a lot. It's a different thing. Yeah.
So you're assuming that my current license, I will not have to pay that £80 per month.
Yeah, you don't have to pay that. You've already got a license. You just want to have it hosted. Yeah. And if you don't want to have it hosted because you want to put it on your own machine, you can do that anyway. But if you want it hosted, and we should have a conversation because it's quite hard to work out just on a per user basis, as Matt said. So you might sit more likely there than there. We can have that conversation. How's that? Confused?
It changes weekly. Like literally changes weekly. next week there'll be something else from them, and it will just change again.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. It's a very, very new thing. It's changing literally by the week. So if you're considering it, I would suggest it's something you're considering doing more likely next year than this year, if you're going into their cloud, because I think that makes more sense. But as I said, there at the moment it has to just be a conversation. Does this look like something we could do? It depends how modified your system is, how many of those modifications you want to have going forward, and other stuff around how you do reporting today and so on. Okay? But it's definitely a conversation that we should have. I think there ends today's lecture. We now have some lunch. And that's the end of our agenda, so you get to go home early and sit in the garden. Thank you for coming along. Thank you.
Thank you.